It's just past 6:30 in the evening, and the desert sky blazes pink and gold as Laura Bennett pulls her rental sedan under the shaded portico of Bennett Bay Resort. Her 8-year-old daughter Mia lies asleep in the back seat, exhausted after a 7-hour drive. Laura steps out in plain jeans and a faded t-shirt, unassuming, but in a few moments, every smug smile and polite greeting in this lobby will shatter. Before we see Laura demand justice and turn the tables on their own prejudice, hit subscribe and smash that like button right now. Type "empowered" in the comments if you believe respect isn't earned by looks, but by actions. You do not want to miss a moment of this single mom's epic showdown. Brace yourself, because what happens next will leave you absolutely speechless. Hit subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss any twist. Laura Bennett isn't just any guest arriving at Bennett Bay Resort, she's the quiet force behind its every detail. A former Air Force logistics officer, she spent years coordinating complex operations in desert heat, running supply lines through hostile territory, always under pressure. Today she trades flight suits and fatigues for a simple pair of jeans and a soft gray t-shirt, her dark hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail. Yet beneath that unassuming exterior lies the steely confidence of someone who has navigated crises far worse than being dismissed at a hotel desk. Her daughter, 8-year-old Mia, stirs as they pull to a stop under the resort's grand portico. Mia's cheeks are flushed from the 7-hour drive from San Diego sand, and scrub brush sped by in a blur as Laura pushed through traffic and desert highways, determined to keep her promise. In 2 days, it will be Mia's birthday, and instead of the usual crowded theme park, Laura planned something extraordinary, a mother-daughter escape to the renovated oasis she secretly owns. She wanted soft tranquility, the watercolor sunsets over Camelback Mountain, and the gentle roar of the indoor waterfall greeting them like an old friend. As they step into the lobby, the air cools, scented faintly of lavender and cedar. Overhead, recessed lights glow softly on marble floors, polished to a mirror finish. The massive waterfall lobby, brought back to life under her renovation firm's direction, rumbles in the center water, tumbling down stacked stone, fracturing into prisms of light. Mia presses her palm flat against the polished marble ledge, eyes wide as she watches her reflection dance in the shifting waves. Guests drift past in crisp polo shirts and designer sandals. Their voices hushed, cameras lifted to capture the cascading water feature. A bellhop in a red blazer begs their attention with forced cheer, his name tag glinting under the lobby lights. The resort's new lounge chairs, arranged in perfect symmetry, hint at the precision Laura demanded when she oversaw every last detail of the redesign. No corner cut, no expense spared. Yet none of this luxury was meant to define her. Laura chose anonymity for a reason. She wanted to see the genuine heart of her creation. Would it welcome everyone equally, or fawn only over those who looked the part? In uniform and under fire, she learned that honesty and integrity matter far more than polished veneers. Now, as she and Mia cross the marble expanse toward the front desk, every polished step carries the weight of her expectations. Mia's backpack bounces against her leg as she peeks around the corner of one of the giant potted cacti that flank the reception area. "Mommy, look at that waterfall," she whispers, voice hushed in awe. Laura smiles, tightening her grip on Mia's small hand. "I promised you something magical," she replies, her tone warm but not indulgent. "You'll see more soon." They reach the desk, 3 stations manned by staff in crisp uniforms. 2 attendants chat and laugh behind their screens, oblivious to the mother and daughter approaching. At the 3rd station, a sharply dressed woman with sleek dark hair and a name tag reading Chloe glances up. There's a flicker in Chloe's eyes as she takes in Laura's plain clothes and Mia's simple backpack. But the smile she offers isn't welcoming. It's cool, practiced, as if she's already decided this pair doesn't fit the resort's ideal image. Laura offers a nod and a polite, measured smile. "Good evening," she says. Her voice is calm, precise, the same tone she used to rally troops before a mission briefing. "I'm checking in under Rivers Cove Holdings Suite 502, 5 nights." Mia shifts at her side, blinking sleep from her eyes, clutching her mother's hand tightly. Chloe's fingers hesitate over the keyboard. For a moment, she doesn't meet Laura's gaze. Then she shrugs, tilting her chin in practiced apology. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're fully booked for the week." Her voice is soft, but the words land like a slap. Laura feels a strange tightening in her chest. Not anger yet, but a frisson of disbelief. All that planning, all that work, and here she stands, unrecognized, brushed aside. Behind Chloe, the laughter of her colleagues rises again as another couple steps forward, dressed head to toe in resort chic. Laura watches Chloe's smile widen for them in an instant. The double standard is crystal clear. Yet Laura remains composed, letting the moment stretch. She's seen hardship triumphed over worse. She'll give Chloe and her team a chance to do what's right. But make no mistake, this mother-daughter duo belongs here, and soon everyone will know it. Laura stood perfectly still as Chloe's apology faded into the background, just another polite fiction to cover a deliberate lie. She felt the pressure in her chest like an invisible vice tightening, but she didn't react. Instead, she guided Mia toward a low marble bench beside the waterfall lobby and sat the cascading water masking her daughter's confused whispers. Mia tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mom, why won't she give us our room?" Laura closed her eyes for a heartbeat, feeling the cool mist on her face, imagining the desert winds she'd once faced on deployment. Not everyone sees what's real, sweetheart. Sometimes they make decisions based on what they think they see, not who you really are. Mia nodded, unsettled, and pressed her small hand into Laura's palm. From her vantage point, Laura watched Chloe continue to assist a sharply dressed couple designer luggage matching polos without missing a beat. The bellhop hovered nearby, ready to whisk their bags away. She recognized the ritual privilege on display deference as currency, but she had a secret weapon information. She tapped her phone and dialed. "Maya," she said into the line voice, low but urgent. "I'm at the resort. They claim there's no reservation under Rivers Cove Holdings." A pause. "Under the usual file name Suite 502 for 5 nights. Yes, I know the irony." She tapped her foot, feeling the marble cool beneath her shoes. "Can you confirm I'll wait?" A soft click, then the reassuring beep of confirmation. Suite 502 booked, paid in full, assigned weeks ago. She hung up and slipped the phone into her pocket. Mia leaned against her, eyes wide. Laura smiled, smoothing the girl's hair. "We have it, baby. Let's give them one more chance." They stood and approached the desk again. This time, Laura left Mia by the planter and stepped forward alone. Chloe glanced up, expectant. Laura offered a calm, controlled nod. "I'm sorry, but I insist you check again. Rivers Cove Holdings Suite 502. Chloe's fingers hovered over the keys. She tapped and clicked in exaggerated motions, brow furrowing, as if the computer itself were resisting. She scrolled, paused, then shook her head. Still nothing. "I'm sorry, ma'am." Laura's heart hammered. She could feel every breath, each inhale, a promise of justice. "Please," she said softly. It was the same word she'd used during grueling training exercises when lives hung in the balance. It commanded attention. Chloe's shoulders tensed. Her fingers slipped off the keyboard. For a fleeting second, regret crossed her features, just a flicker before she masked it with a blank stare. "Fine," Chloe said, raising her voice slightly so the other 2 clerks would hear. "I'll call the manager." She picked up the phone with a sigh. At that moment, a new figure emerged from behind the desk, Greg, the young concierge in a beige blazer and thin mustache. He had the look of someone who'd watched too many training videos and never actually made a mistake until now. Greg's eyes registered Laura's presence, and he moved with crisp efficiency to a nearby computer. Laura crouched down beside Mia and whispered, "Watch." Mia's eyes lit up with curiosity, her fear replaced by fascination. Laura returned to standing height, composed feet, planted on the polished floor. Greg's fingers danced across the keys. His expression shifted from polite detachment to surprise, then immediate apology. I'm sorry, Ms. Bennett. It's here. Suite 502, 5 nights deluxe view." His voice betrayed disbelief, as if the room itself were a hallucination. Laura nodded once, curt. Thank you, Greg. That's all I needed. She reached to accept the printed keycards, but paused. Can I speak with your assistant general manager, please? Her tone held the same quiet authority she'd used to brief teams on critical missions. Greg swallowed. She's tied up on another call, but I can ask her. Laura held up her hand. I'll wait. She turned just enough to let Mia dash to the waterfall wall, her reflection quivering in the ripples. Laura watched her daughter's joy for a heartbeat before refocusing on the desk. Chloe stood frozen pen in hand, her composure shattered. 15 seconds later, the assistant general manager herself appeared, Sofia Delgado, in a tailored blazer that whispered corporate polish. Her blonde hair was cropped short, her posture impeccable. Her eyes darted between Laura and Chloe, registering the tension. Ms. Bennett, she began, voice steady but breathless. I apologize for the confusion. There was a misunderstanding. She paused, but Laura cut in. Do you know who I am? Sophia's eyes widened, then narrowed in recognition. Yes. Laura leaned closer. Then you know this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a choice. Sophia looked away, throat tight. I understand you're upset. We'll make this right. Laura nodded, voice calm but dangerous. I don't just want an apology. I want accountability. Sophia swallowed, shifting her weight. Of course. Laura turned and found Mia at her side, joyful in the luxury she'd only just discovered. She slipped an arm around her daughter and smiled into the shimmering water. But beneath that smile was still the promise that those who had cast judgment would face consequences far beyond printed key cards. Because here in this lavish lobby, a single mother had ignited a reckoning, and nobody would look at Bennett Bay Resort the same way again. Now that Laura has exposed the lie, she doesn't strike immediately. Instead, she retreats to gather her forces and to turn this injustice into leverage no one will forget. She guides Mia toward a quiet corner of the lobby just out of earshot and sends her off to explore the waterfall's edge. Then Laura steps behind a towering indoor cactus and taps her phone. Maya, she says, voice low but urgent, we just got stonewalled at the front desk even after Greg confirmed Suite 502. I need a paper trail, every email, every timestamp, pull the full booking logs, the internal audit, and the chain's customer service reports on this property for the last year. And get me HR's schedule of anti-bias training sessions. I want everything by 30 minutes ago. She ends the call and inhales deeply, closing her eyes against the mist. This is no longer just a personal slight. It's now a test. Will Bennett Bay stand for principle or bow to unspoken prejudices? She moves deliberately toward the resort's business center, her military-honed stride purposeful and calm. The polished mahogany desk holds a bank of computers, guest logs, and employee rosters. She seats herself at a vacant terminal boots, scuffing softly. Finger poised above the keyboard, she pulls up the resort's intranet, then quietly logs in. As RCH visitor, the backdoor credentials she'd had Maya provision for just this moment. First, she exports the reservations database, every Rivers Cove Holdings entry, every date stamp, every modification note. Then she snapshots the front desk access log screen, showing exactly which user IDs had accessed Suite 502 yesterday at 6:45 p.m. She cross-references with employee shift schedules, Chloe's code, Greg's code, and who was logged in when. Next, she pulls open HR's training records and highlights a gap. Chloe never attended last quarter's implicit bias workshop. While she works, the soft thunder of the waterfall provides cover. Mia's laughter drifts over. She's found a new hiding spot near the ferns, but Laura keeps her focus, stacking proof like ammunition. When Maya's email arrives, she downloads a PDF of the front desk exception report that shows 5 other guests flagged as no-shows on nights when the resort was actually underbooked. She opens the customer service complaints log and finds an unredacted memo. Patron insisted she owned this place, fingered as troublemaker, no action taken. It's dated that morning. Her stomach clenches. This was deliberate. Laura closes the laptop and stands. She tucks the device into her tote along with printed logs and a stack of screen captures. everything she needs to make her point laid out in black and white. She sweeps across the lobby, nodding to the bellhop, who now gives her a curious glance. She had flagged him earlier an ally in plain sight, and he offers a respectful half-smile in return. Next, she approaches the concierge desk and addresses Greg quietly. I need you to pull the backup logs from both workstations yesterday. Also check if Chloe saved any annotations or incident notes in her user profile. His eyes flick to the papers in her hand. Yes, ma'am, he replies, clearing his throat. Right away. She thanks him and turns back to the reception area where Chloe and another clerk are already whispering about her. Laura's heart rate slows, measured military precision under pressure. She's not here to yell or demand immediate retribution. She's building an unstoppable case. Within minutes, Greg returns, sliding over 2 USB drives. Here are the workstation archives, he says, voice low. Laura nods, pocketing them. Thank you, Greg. Excellent work. He looks relieved, finally a chance to do right. With her evidence in hand, Laura calls Maya again. Maya, alert legal and the board. Tell them I'll need a conference room reserved in 1 hour executive lounge. I'm bringing the data. I want legal counsel, HR director, and the regional director on the line. No exceptions. She hangs up, turns to find Mia waiting by the waterfall, her small face curious. Everything okay? Mia asks. Laura kneels, brushing back her daughter's hair. We're about to get some answers, she says, soft but determined, and make sure nobody ever doubts us here again. They walk together past the marble bench and back toward the front desk. The resort's patrons now give them passing glances, some respectful, others startled by the sudden sense of authority radiating from this unassuming woman in jeans. At exactly 1 hour after first check-in, Laura enters the executive lounge. The plush chairs and wide windows feel too comfortable for what's about to happen. Already seated are the assistant GM Sophia, looking composed but wary, the regional director Nelson steepling his fingers, and HR's director, arms crossed. They all stand as she enters. Laura nods, setting her tote on the conference table. She lays out the printed reservation logs, the booking system screenshots, the HR training spreadsheet, and the exception report. Good afternoon, she says, voice even. You've resisted every polite request I made at the desk. You claimed it was full, despite your system telling me otherwise. Now I have documented proof that this was not a system error, but a decision by your staff to block my daughter and me based on how we look. She lets the words hang in the quiet room. Then she continues. I'm not here for apologies alone. I expect a full review, immediate disciplinary action, and a mandatory training session using this case names, dates, details for every employee on property. I want this documented in your corporate files and traced back to ensure it never happens again. The clock starts now. Silence greets her final sentence. Then the room's energy shifts, authority acknowledged, power reclaimed. And in this moment, Laura Bennett has turned a simple check-in into a fight for respect that no one at Bennett Bay Resort will ever forget. Over the next several hours, Laura Bennett methodically dismantled every instance of the prejudice she'd exposed, one moment at a time. First, she and Mia slipped into Desert Bloom Cafe for breakfast. The air was bright and warm sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Mia dove into a stack of chocolate chip pancake syrup dripping down her fingers. Laura sipped bitter resort coffee as she surveyed the room. Near the windows, an older white couple exchanged hushed words. The hostess approached, clipboard in hand, and the husband muttered, "We'd rather not sit so close to all that activity." His wife nodded, eyes flicking toward Mia's colorful dress and animated chatter. The hostess glanced at Laura, then back at the couple. Laura caught her eye and offered a reassuring nod. The hostess turned gracefully to the couple, lowered her voice. "Of course, right this way," and guided them to a corner table far from mother and daughter, whose laughter had become the only bright spot in her morning. Laura didn't flinch. She watched them settle, saw the faint relief on their faces. When the hostess returned, Laura said softly, "Thank you for taking care of that." The hostess hesitated, then managed a grateful smile. "I'm sorry you had to see that. Laura simply replied, "You handled it exactly right." Next, Laura paid the bill, and they moved to the lobby. There, a sharply dressed businessman, a young black man in a crisp suit, stepped up to the desk. Chloe's posture stiffened as he introduced himself. "I'm checking in for the conference rate under Meridian Energy." Chloe typed, scrolled, then shook her head. "I don't see your name in the system. You'll need to call your company." The man's face fell. He stepped aside and pulled out his phone. Laura intercepted him with a calm, "Excuse me, sir." She extended her hand. "Laura Bennett, this resort is mine." The look on his face flickered between surprise and relief. At the desk, Chloe snapped to attention. Laura continued Meridian Energy 3 nights Standard King. "I approved the rate myself." She turned to Chloe. "You'll find it right here." With a few swift keystrokes from Greg, who hovered anxiously, Chloe watched the booking appear. She exhaled, printed his keys. The businessman gave Laura a grateful nod as he collected his card. Laura turned away before Chloe could muster an apology, her work not yet done. By mid-morning, whispers spread like wildfire. Housekeepers paused to watch Laura stroll through the hallways, Mia skipping beside her. Guards at the pool entrance no longer glanced past, they stood to attention. Bellhops adjusted carts to give Laura and Mia a clear path. Every staff member who had ignored or rebuffed them was now on notice. At the pool deck, Mia splashed gleefully in the shallow end, while Laura settled on a chaise-longue phone in hand. She scrolled through the internal chat group she'd set up with Maya, a stream of messages from department heads acknowledging the case study briefing. HR to schedule reflection session, training module, live next week. Names have been sent to legal. Laura tapped her pen against her notebook, satisfied. A group of lifeguards passed by, giving her respectful nods. One of them paused, then offered Mia a pool noodle. Mia beamed. Later, Laura led Mia to the lobby bar, promising a chocolate milkshake. The bartender reached for a menu, then paused when he saw Laura's calm but commanding presence. Instead of the usual upsell, he slid 2 tall glasses across the counter without a word. Laura caught his eye. "Thank you," she said. He nodded once, clearly relieved to be treated like an ally. As the afternoon sun turned golden, Laura returned to the front desk, one last sweep. Chloe and the 2 other clerks stood behind the counter, faces pale. Laura approached with Mia tucked under her arm. "How's everything?" she asked quietly. Chloe managed a small, "Yes, ma'am." "Everything's fine now." Laura nodded. "Good, because from this moment on, every guest who steps into Bennett Bay Resort deserves equal welcome. No exceptions." Chloe dropped her eyes. The other clerks exchanged glances. The unspoken understanding passed among them they had been wrong, and she had righted it. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the sandstone peaks, Laura and Mia returned to their suite. Mia flopped onto the couch, sugar high and content, while Laura paused by the balcony, looking out over the pool lights, shimmering below. She took a deep breath of the smoky desert air and let it out slowly. Today, she'd turned humiliation into accountability. She'd shown her daughter that respect isn't optional, and that sometimes real power lies in shattering every barrier with grace and strength. In the days that followed, Bennett Bay staff approached them with genuine warmth, holding doors, offering umbrellas, delivering fresh towels with smiles. The executive team held their mandatory training sessions, names read aloud, consequences outlined, promises made. And every now and then, Laura would catch Chloe's eye across the lobby. There was no hatred there, only respect earned, and never again to be denied. The next morning dawned with a palpable shift in the resort's atmosphere. As Laura and Mia stepped off the elevator into the marble lobby, Chloe was the first to greet them, this time with genuine warmth. "Good morning, Ms. Bennett," she said, voice steady, eyes meeting Laura's without hesitation. Behind her, the 2 other front desk clerks offered polite nods instead of furtive glances. In the lobby cafe, the hostess who'd moved the older couple approached Laura and whispered, "They've already reached out to apologize to every guest they treated poorly. I saw it in the manager's report." Laura simply smiled. Mia chattered about chocolate pancakes, but the real excitement pulsed through Laura's veins. Justice had been served. By mid-morning, staff at every station seemed to have undergone a personal transformation. The bellhop who'd passed them without a glance now rushed forward, offering help with their bags and escorting them toward the elevator with a proud smile. Housekeepers paused in the hallway to greet Mia, and the guards at the pool entrance lifted their hats in respect as Laura walked by. Late that morning, Laura received a discreet text from Maya Board just met. Regional Director Nelson presented the full case: your name, the dates, the screenshots, the HR gaps. Corporate is mandating a chain-wide training rollout next month. Chloe and 2 others have been placed on probation, anti-bias retraining scheduled immediately. Laura glanced at Mia as she hopped off a bench near the waterfall and back into her mother's arms. She tapped back, "Thank you. I appreciate swift action." Shortly after, Assistant GM Sophia approached under the pretense of routine follow-up. But there was no nervousness in her step this time, only professionalism and respect. "Ms. Bennett, I wanted to personally thank you for holding us accountable," Sophia said. "We've already issued a written apology to every guest who was turned away, and we're reviewing all front desk policies to ensure this never happens again." Laura nodded once. "I wanted you to understand the impact of assumptions," she replied softly. "Now everyone here knows what equality really means." Word of Laura's intervention even reached the resort's social media channels, a brief unbranded post highlighting Bennett Bay's renewed commitment to inclusive hospitality, drawing praise and new bookings from guests who value respect as much as luxury. By the time Laura and Mia checked out 3 days later, their departure had become an event in itself. Calvin, the concierge who'd first acknowledged her ownership, handed Laura a small gift bag, locally made soaps, and a handwritten note. "Thank you for making us better. Safe travels." He bowed slightly. She returned the gesture, eyes shining with approval. As they drove away, Mia looked up and said, "Mom, you really are a superhero." Laura glanced at her daughter, smiling in the rearview mirror. "Just your mom," she replied. But at Bennett Bay Resort, nobody forgot the day a single mother in jeans rewrote the rules. Customers arrived expecting 5-star treatment, not realizing that the true foundation of this luxury retreat had been reforged in a storm of integrity, and that sometimes the strongest power move is demanding respect, then walking away with your head held high. Now let's break down why this matters and what we can all learn. First, assumptions are weapons. Chloe and her team wielded theirs without realizing the damage the authority to welcome or to reject, based on nothing more than appearance. Laura's methodical response turned a simple power play into an undeniable exposé. She didn't erupt in anger. She collected facts, built a case, and forced accountability where excuses had reigned. That's the first lesson: evidence cuts through prejudice. Second, leadership isn't a title, it's an action. Laura never announced herself as owner until she had the proof, the bookings, the logs, the anti-bias gap. In doing so, she demonstrated that real power lies in preparation and restraint, not in intimidation. Confronting injustice with calm precision commands respect far more than a shouting match. Third, accountability must be systemic. A single apology or a lone HR memo would have been empty gestures. Laura demanded a chain-wide training overhaul, probation for those at fault, and written apologies to every affected guest. By tying individual mistakes to institutional reform, she ensured this would never reoccur and turned a private slight into a public mandate for change. Finally, empathy wins. Despite everything, Laura protected her daughter's wonder, letting Mia play by the waterfall, keeping her laughter alive. She used every interaction to demonstrate dignity under fire, teaching by example that respect is non-negotiable even in the face of prejudice. When you judge someone by appearance, you lose sight of their story. Laura Bennett's mother-daughter getaway became a masterclass in ethics, strength, and strategic action. Next time you feel tempted to leap to conclusions, pause. Ask for the facts. Stand for the principles. Because sometimes the most shocking moment isn't the injustice itself, but watching it dismantled by someone who refuses to be invisible. And that's how a simple check-in turned into a powerful lesson in respect and accountability. Laura Bennett came for a quiet mother-daughter getaway and left having reshaped the very culture of this resort. She proved that true strength isn't measured by force, but by the courage to stand firm, gather the facts, and demand justice without losing your grace. So next time you're tempted to judge someone by their clothes or their car, remember Mia's wide-eyed wonder at that waterfall and her mother's refusal to be dismissed. Real power comes from preparation, calm resolve, and the willingness to turn a private slight into a public mandate for change. If this story struck a chord, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs a reminder that respect is a right, not a privilege. Drop respect in the comments to pledge you won't look away when injustice happens, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping tales of ordinary people taking extraordinary stands. Up next, you won't believe what happened when a college student was denied service at her own fraternity reunion until she called in reinforcements. Trust me, you'll want to see how she flipped the script. Click subscribe, and let's keep uncovering these stories of quiet power and epic turnarounds together.